What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Steel to Stone channel. So today we're checking out the Dispatch Knives DP8033GN. As far as I can tell, all their knives have just model numbers instead of names. But full disclosure, this knife was provided to me by Dispatch Knives. They contacted me a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or over a month ago, and asked me if I'd be interested in checking out some of their knives, potentially reviewing them on the channel. I said, sure, why not? They sent this guy over, and that's why I'm reviewing it. So just full disclosure, this is probably the best QC'd one of these that you could get. You know, maybe not. They might have just grabbed one and sent it to me, but nonetheless, full disclosure, they did send this to me. So with all that being said, let's get into the review. Alright, so this is a stainless steel frame lock folder with 8CR13 MOV steel. It's a flipper running on bearings with a steel detent ball, carbon fiber G10 show side scale, and a black wash finish. So before we take a good hard look at it, let's go over the specs, do a couple size comparisons. Alright, so we saw the specs there. Here's a few size comparisons. Knife's about 7 inches in overall length. There's the PM2 and the stretch. And then here's a fixed blade I made last week. It's about the exact same size. So let's take a good look at the knife. I'm really digging this blade shape here. Sort of a modified Warncliffe or sheep's foot. Bit of a reverse Tonto action going on there. Very utilitarian style blade, kind of reminiscent of a razor blade itself, so great for utilitarian style task. We've got this OD green show side scale with carbon fiber overlayment with some nice milling to contour the scale and do some aesthetic milling in there as well. Looks really good. Custom pivot T8 and T6 screws for the rest of the knife, and a black wash finish. So I really like this finish. It looks really good, and from the cutting I've done, it seems to hold up pretty well too. So I like the black wash finish a lot. Like I said, right hand tip up only on the pocket clip, T6 screws, steel detent ball, steel bearings, floating stop pin, a nice high flat grind that's very consistent from side to side. The grind on this looks great. It's very symmetrical, and it's about 25 thousandths behind the edge. The only thing I don't like about the blade is the sharpening choil. Nice generous flipper tab there, and a small lanyard hole that'll definitely accept a 550 cord lanyard or something similar. And so looking at the construction of the knife, you've got a floating stop pin here, as you can see. Really open construction. No relieve milling or anything inside of the scales, but just two long standoffs holding the knife together. So I like that a lot when it comes to folding knives. Just very simple build construction. I get annoyed when I got to take 12 screws out of a knife handle to get the knife apart, so I like that. And the floating stop pin. The action on this, like I said, running on bearings. Flipper tab works great. Detent is a little on the lighter side, but the action is super smooth. The lockup is really solid, up, down, left, right, no play whatsoever that I can feel. The fuller tab there is kind of tricky to use with it being a frame lock. You pinch it closed when you try to use that, but I did find I could spotty flick it even though there's no fuller on the back side of the knife. But the action on this is pretty great. It doesn't drop closed, but you can give it a little shimmy and it'll fall closed. So very good action, and centering is very close to perfect. So not bad at all. Alright, so last thing I wanted to do before we move on to sharpening and testing is take a look at the ergonomics. So this has a nice good sized little chamfer all the way around the edge of the scales, which makes it pretty comfortable in hand. It is a small knife, so if you've got large hands, your hand may fall off the end of it, as mine kinda does, but it is very, very comfortable. during use, even though it's a little on the smaller side. My favorite way to use it so far is just in the pinch grip here. Very comfortable like that. And just about any way that you hold this knife, it feels really comfortable. The clip doesn't even really cause me any hot spot at all. So I really like the design of this handle. The ergonomics of it feels really good in hand. So yeah, pretty pleased with that as well. Now let's get on to, all right, so we're gonna sharpen this using the Veneve Greater Dog Series stone I got here. This is the 150 400 grit. I'm just gonna clean off all the residue before I get started. And the way I do this is just with a little bit of baby oil now, or mineral oil, just rub it into the surface and wipe it down with a paper towel. Seems to be the best way to clean these as far as I can tell. You can see all of it just comes right out of the surface and you can just wipe it off. So we'll clean both sides and then we'll get into the sharpening. Okay, so when you sharpen a new knife, with this one I just matched the angle on the factory edge. So the way I do that is just by laying the knife flat on the stone, raising it up until that shadow underneath the edge disappears, and that's your angle, and that's the easiest way to find it. I did put this on the work sharp just to check it. It was sharpened to about 25 degrees per side, which is a little bit steep, but for this knife and the way that it's designed, the thickness of the blade, I feel like this is meant to be kind of a bit of hard use, you know, utilitarian style design. So I think they wanted it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit tougher of an edge, especially with 8CR 13 MOV, and I think they've accomplished that with this particular design. With sharpening this, I found it to be super easy. You know, it's 8CR. I did have it tested. It's at 59 HRC, which is good for 8CR, but it's still a pretty easy steel to cut either way, and always takes a fantastic edge as far as I can tell. The first sharpening I did felt a little worse than the second one. I had a little bit of struggle pulling the burr off, finishing on that 800 grit CBN stone. But with this one, sorry about the noise in the background, but with this one it went pretty well. Very quick, as you'll see here. I think it took me about 6 minutes to resharpen this and strop it, so not bad at all. Only problem I had really was the choil there. You see the choil has got that smile on the edge of it, and it was actually like that from the factory. So that's always a big pet peeve of mine, is when they don't extend the choil out far enough to where it doesn't interfere with your freehand sharpening or whatever kind of sharpening you're doing. And you could easily alleviate that by extending the choil up into the blade or out towards the tip a little bit, and it wouldn't be a problem. And I'll definitely probably be doing that with this knife. But so far that's really my only complaint of this particular knife and design. Other than that, it's been pretty great. But we'll get the sharpening done, switch over to the 400 grit after the burr forms, and strop it, and then I'll tell you guys about the testing that I did. Alright, so now we're on the 400 grit. We're just cleaning up the scratch pattern here and reducing the burr best we can on the 400 grit. And like I said, the sharpening went pretty well. I did probably a handful of deburring passes on each side of the blade, and it went really quickly, and felt like most of the burr was gone when I got done with the sharpening. And then I just solidified that fact on the strop with the 6 micron on basswood, and then went over to testing. So I didn't record the testing footage, but this is right after the test. This is the edge after I did the test, and I'll just go ahead and tell you guys what it got. So I just did a regular cardboard test on a 1-inch section, sharpened at the factory angle. Didn't do anything special, just sharpened it up, did a quick test, and it did 93 feet off the first edge, which I felt like was pretty good for 8CR, especially at 25 degrees per side. So fairly impressed with this. I haven't tested a lot of 8CR. Actually, I don't think I've ever tested it before, but I don't feel like that's too bad of a number for what it is. And looking at the finish on this, after all the cutting I did with the cardboard, the wood that I cut, I feel like the edge held up pretty good for 8CR, and the finish on the blade held up very well as well. So pretty pleased with the testing and the performance of this knife overall. Even though it is a little thick behind the edge, pretty happy with it in terms of what I feel like it's meant to be used for. So here we are at the end of the review. What do I think about this, and what have I got to say about it? Well, the Dispatch Knives 8033-GN I think is a solid deal. That's what I think about this. $38 I think is a good knife for that price. And what I mean by that is you're getting 8CR 13 MOV, which is not the best deal, but you know, this is honestly, if I were to compare this to a Spyderco Tenacious, this would probably be a better knife. If I were to compare this to some of the cheap Kershaws out there from China, this would probably be a better knife, or you know, just as good as those two, for less money than some of them. So I think that this is a good deal, and I've been pretty pleased with using it. I was very impressed with the test results. I haven't tested a lot of 8CR like I said, but I was not under impressed with it, or you know, disappointed with it. 93 feet off of the first edge, I thought that was pretty damn good, and actually surprised me, especially at 25 degrees per side. Might have even improved. I just don't have the time to put into videos like I used to, but nonetheless, I do think this is great. The only dislikes I have of it is the choil here, and I had some issues getting the pivot apart. I wanted to take this knife apart, but since there's no Torx hole on the back side of the knife, I couldn't take it apart, and I guess it's red Loctite it together, so I'm gonna have to heat that up to get it apart if I want to do that. But the hardware is pretty nice, T6 hardware. The fit and finish, you know, it's not of the level of like a Civivi knife or a Wii knife, so I'm not gonna say it's as good as one of these, but you know, it's not bad, and for what you're paying for this, it's a pretty damn good deal. $38, and if you like this knife or anything else on Dispatch Knives website, they have a lot of knives, folding knives, fixed blades, other EDC gear. Check them out, dispatchknives.com. I'll leave a link in the description, and if you want this knife, or you see something else, another knife that you like, you can get 20% off your order from them if you use the code in the description. I'll leave the links and the code down below, so check them out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you watching. I try to keep these shorter than I used to, just because I know a lot of people don't like you rambling on about a knife for 20 minutes. So try to keep them short and sweet, pack in as much information as I can. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and check out Dispatch Knives if you enjoyed the knife and the video. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.